Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שברחים גם יחד. 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 How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this stage. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this stage. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שברחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שברחים גם יחד. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this stage. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this stage. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שברחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שברחים גם יחד. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום.
Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to have you all here. We have a lot of guests, Tom. You can imagine we have a lot of guests, a lot of guest speakers, a lot of authors, a lot of teachers here for special events. I am so particularly excited for this evening because rarely are the speakers or presenters or authors a personal friend. And so I am thrilled to have my friend Tom Panek here with us today. Some of you know the story, but not everybody here does. About 10 years ago, we met one another. I was a runner, Tom was a runner, and I started, after running a few marathons, I decided that I wanted to help guide runners with disabilities so that they could achieve their own goals and dreams of running a marathon. And I had guided a couple of other runners who had vision impairment, and then after I got a little bit of experience, was paired up with Tom, who lives nearby just over the border in New York State. So we actually live pretty close to one another. So we started running together in training runs, etc., and eventually ran the New York City Marathon together, which was just a thrill and a highlight of my running career. We did a 4-hour marathon together. I remember that. Sub four. So sub four. Is it? Let me see if we. There you go.
There we go.
Here we go. A
Testing?
sub 4 marathon. And so before
By 1 second, by the way.
yeah, it was like, it was very close, but it was sub. Before we officially get started, I know some of our friends want to come up and take a photo with 10. Yes. Okay? Do you want to tell everybody why he's named 10?
Yeah, so 10 is 3 years old, and he is my guide dog. I'm visually impaired, blind. And 10 is, there's a couple reasons why he's named 10. And they all sort of come together, and of course the title of the book is 10. The first reason is that he is the 10th puppy out of a litter of 10. So there's that. The second reason, it's a big letter. The second reason is that I've been at Guiding Eyes for 10 years. But the most important reason is I have a friend, and he happened to be a football player, and he retired his jersey, 2-time Super Bowl winner, and he wanted a dog to have his jersey. And so he gave up his jersey, and this one's a little smaller than the one he wore. And I think one of your 7th graders knew who it was. Where is that young man that knew the name, right? And who is it? And who's number 10 named after? Will, who's number 10 named after?
Will, who is it? Say it louder.
Eli
There we
Manning.
go.
So, yeah.
All right.
So
All right.
he's named after Eli, and Eli is a proud board member of Guiding Eyes for the Blind, where I work, and also another athlete like Rabbi Michael and me.
Oh boy.
Except
Yeah.
he only runs 100 yards. We run 26.2 miles. So you
Okay,
decide.
that's one way to put it. But, between me and Eli Manning, we have 2 Super Bowl trophies. Okay. So 7th graders, if you want to take a photo with 10, come on up. This is a good time to do it.
Sit.
I know there are 7th graders. Some of our 7th graders are going to stay for the entirety, which is great. All right. Come on up, guys. Come on up. He's already posing for you.
So, Michael, is it one at a time? Or
Oh,
is
no,
it
they're all going to do it
all
together. It's going to be too much.
Sit.
Everybody's got to face Kate.
Sit. Hey, come on. Okay. Here we go. Sit. All right. Stay. Okay. All right. I'm tall. Should I sit, Michael, you think? Okay. Okay. Where am I looking? Here we go. Yep. Okay. Oh, no. Come on. 10. Here we go. All right, thank you. Thank you, 7th graders. Okay, good boy.
Okay, so I know that some of our 7th graders are able to stay for the entirety of the program, which would be great. Some of you I know have to go home at 7:45, which is our normal end time on Tuesday nights? If so, that's fine. You'll just quietly get up and go at that time. The rest of us will, I anticipate we'll go till about 8:15 this evening. So that gives us just a little bit more than an hour for us to talk, you and me, Tom, and then to take some questions from the congregation. So first of all, on behalf of our entire congregation, Tom, welcome. It's a pleasure and honor to have you here this evening.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I want to start by asking you to tell us a little bit about your early life. You were born with sight.
Yes.
And then as you tell in your book, your sight began to diminish at an early age.
Yes, and I will actually read a little bit from my book
Great.
when you tell me it's okay. I was born with perfect vision. I could see everything. I could see just like anybody else. And then slowly, the stars in the night sky started to disappear. On a clear night, I could only see a few. And like a jigsaw puzzle, does anybody do jigsaw puzzles?
I've got a few hands.
Anybody ever lost a piece to the puzzle? No. Imagine you have a jigsaw puzzle and that's your vision. And you keep losing the pieces. Every day you lose one piece. And the picture of the world looked to me like a jigsaw puzzle that was losing its pieces. And that was happening very slowly. So I'd wake up in the morning and one more piece would be gone. And I didn't know it was happening, but I decided to keep it a secret. I didn't tell anybody.
And that led to a life of great risk and danger.
It
Correct.
did. And when I didn't tell somebody, I would get lost at night, getting picked up in the evening by my parents, or I would try to see the chalkboard and I couldn't see it. So I would do things like, instead of going to play with my friends, I would get to school early and wash the chalkboard so it was nice and black and the white chalk, I could see it. Or I'm dating myself for the parents here. We used to have this thing called an overhead projector. Does anybody remember that?
Yep.
You remember? Okay. And it had a very dim light bulb in it. And I could barely see what my teacher was writing on the wall. So I got in early and I went in the basement, and our facilities guy, we used to call him janitors, was there. And I convinced him to put a brighter bulb into the overhead projector. And when it came up on the wall, it was very bright. I could see it again. And nobody noticed the smell of plastic burning because it was too hot. But I would do all kinds of things like that so that nobody would know.
You were trying to hide up,
I was
hide your disability or cover
Yes.
up your
I
disability.
was covering it up.
Yeah, yeah,
And I would get hurt
yeah.
a lot. Yeah.
You write about that in the book. There were several very scary episodes.
Yes, I do. I had one incident where I was going to get a comic book. Any comic book collectors in the room? And I went to the newsstand at night. We used to have a newsstand. We used to go pick these things up. And I was in there quite late, and the shop owner closed up. And I noticed it was dark outside, and it was snowing. It was a very snowy night. And I had my dog with me, a puppy named Anchor, my first dog. He was an English Springer Spaniel. And he was barely a puppy, barely as old in years as I was. And we went outside, and the newsstand light turned off, and I couldn't see anything. And I had to get home. And I started to walk in the snow, and when I was under a street light, I could see. But as soon as I left, even a couple of feet away, it went black again. And all of a sudden, I heard the train coming. And I could feel the ground shaking, and I curled up my toes in my boots because I was hoping that I wasn't on the tracks. And I walked the other way and picked up my puppy and held him in my arms. And as the train passed by, it threw the snow into my face. And after it passed, I put the puppy down, I held onto the leash, and I said, we have a neighbor with a dog named Coco, a little Bichon Frise, if anybody knows that dog. And my dog was always trying to get to the neighbor's dog through the fence or barking at them and like they're best friends. So I said, Coco, where's Coco? And that little puppy darted to go home. And I held onto the leash, and I followed that dog left and right through the snow all the way up the sidewalk to home. And I realized then, when I was just a boy, that it was possible to run, Michael, to run blind, and to run free.
We will get to all of that. I look forward to getting to that. I found it sad reading the book. I mean, I knew you 10 years before you wrote the book and before I knew all these stories about your early life. Sad that you felt like you had to cover up your disability, that your disability put you in danger, as you mentioned, the getting lost in the snow, almost being hit by a train at the crossing, the tracks, and many other very scary instances. Do you want to read a passage now? I think this would be a great time.
Happy to. Give me one moment.
Sure.
So.
And for anyone who's interested, following Tom's presentation, we have several copies of his book available if you'd like. Some have already purchased the books. And Tom will be happy to sign or inscribe your book however you like afterwards. For our seventh graders, just before you start, for our seventh graders, I know we still have a little while before you have to go, but Tom and his team brought gifts for you guys. Before you leave, not right now, but before you leave, when either you're leaving at 7:45 or staying to the end, as you exit the sanctuary, just on the left, there are bags with some gifts just for you guys, okay?
And so I use adaptive technology, a talking computer to write, and also a talking computer to read. I do all the typing myself, and what I'm going to use is software called VoiceOver, and it's going to basically prompt me, and I'm going to read from my book. There's also an Audible version if anybody likes to listen to audiobooks. And I do read the audio version. Technically, I'm not reading with my eyes. I'm reading with my ears, right?
Fascinating.
Okay. So middle school is hard enough for any sighted kid, but at least I had a best friend and anchor who kept me grounded as I learned to live with the secret no one around me seemed to see. The world as I knew it was slowly disappearing. Not just tennis balls getting lost in the grass, but whether I was in a cast or out of one, I continued pretending that I could see, just like everyone else. When it came time for the school vision test, I was once again convinced that my secret would be revealed. I blundered my way through the eye chart, while the school nurse kindly tapped her pencil on the desk, then made a note in my file. "You probably need a new prescription," she said. "Get a note from your optometrist." Next, she asked me to identify hidden letters or shapes within a sea of colored dots. I failed to get even one correct. "That's the Ishihara test," she said. "Do you know you can't see colors?" I looked down at my hands, folded in my lap, and nodded shyly. "Lots of people can't and still live a fulfilling life," she added, empathy welling up in her voice. I thanked her and could not wait to walk away, hopeful she wouldn't call my parents. Back in class, I stared off into space, unable to see the chalkboard, but pretending I could. Somewhere deep within the speckles of circles was the answer I'd been searching for. One day, I promised myself I would find it. In the meantime, I was finding that losing one's vision was very difficult indeed. There were no birds in my sky. My socks never matched, and I was the only kid who had to feel to make sure that the seat was empty before sitting down on the bus. I dozed in and out of sleep during the debut of E.T., dreaming what the little alien looked like, heartlight and all. For me, movies were like reading books without the description. My imagination had to fill in the gaps. None of that mattered when I got home, where Anchor greeted me as if I were the most important kid in the world, jumping for joy and following me wherever I went. His sympathetic nose found every scrape, bump, and bruise on my body as he consoled me without judgment. But I couldn't stay home, and by the time I got to high school, it no longer mattered where I sat, how clean the blackboard, how bright the sun's rays were, or the bulb in that overhead projector happened to be. I couldn't identify a single masterpiece in our class, read the sonnets of Shakespeare, or calculate the equation for a parabola. Playing sports was the most stressful activity of my school day, and maybe of my life. Most people have a visual field of at least close to 180 degrees using both eyes, with some exceptions like NBA star Bill Bradley, who has exceedingly wide peripheral vision. Bill never let down the dribble, and some credit is wider than normal vision for his success as an all-star. For me, it was the opposite. I credit tunnel vision for my failure in sports. It wasn't that I didn't like to exert myself. I loved it. And most of my foibles were met with laughter, like getting hit in the head with a badminton birdie again and again. No one was supposed to fail, Jim, but I sure came close. I missed nearly every football, baseball, and basketball thrown my way. And not because I couldn't see the basket or the ball, or even the lines on the court. It was because I could see only one thing at a time. My free throw, for instance, was perfect. But in the chaos of a game, I had no idea which way to shoot. When I was up at bat during baseball games, I perfected the art of announcing each play in Chicago Cubs announcer Harry Carey's gravelly voice, if only to distract from the fact that I missed every pitch. The only way I could hope to get on base was by walking. In the outfield, Harry Carey's slowed words echoed in my head whenever I heard the crack of a bat. Going, going. I looked up into the blue sky, trying to spot the white cowhide, but the odds were against me. With less than 20 degrees of visual field, I had less than a 10% chance of spotting the ball, let alone catching it. Still, my classmates cheered me on until the moment the ball hit me so hard in the face, my ears rang. "Holy cow!" was all I heard them say before I blacked out. So that kind of tells one story, and I thought I would share that particular time in the book because it's about the age that I was that all you seventh graders are here. So that's what I was going through while I was continuing to hide the fact that my vision was going.
And as your vision decreased and your visual field narrowed, I know that from reading your book that you ended up during your college years at quite a low point in your life.
Yeah, so this was a point where I think many of us parents, and I'm a parent, find ourselves in a place where I could no longer cross a street safely on my own. And I was living in my parents' basement. I had dropped out of college. I could no longer hold down a job. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I just sort of came in and listened to this little radio that was on my bookshelf. And people were reading the newspaper, which was very kind, over the radio. And it was meant for people who had a hard time reading, or maybe you were visually impaired. And I heard a story about a talking computer. Now, back then it was a big deal. Computers didn't talk. And so this story about a motorcycle racer who got into a car accident invented this talking computer. But it was 700 miles away at American University in Washington, D.C. And so I took out a typewriter. I don't know if you kids know what a typewriter is, but I know the parents do. And I rolled the paper in, and I couldn't see what I was typing, but I typed a pleading essay and I sent it to the university where the computer was. And I got back an envelope in the mail. I had no idea what it said, but it admitted me to the university. And I got onto an airplane, felt my way onto the subway when I arrived, and I went to that university, and I went into the room, and I turned on this talking computer, and it talked to me in a robot voice, and it said, "Welcome to Open Book." And I then put in the word Guidedog. What does that spell, 7th graders? Did anybody catch it? Guide dog. And so when I did that, I put it wasn't Google back then, it was Alta Vista and all these weird search engines we know. And it said, a guide dog can help navigate streets, obstacles, help you find an escalator. It was very robotic like this. And I said, oh my gosh, I got to apply for one of these. And so back then, again, the parents in the room, there was something called electronic mail. And so I sent an email to the school and pleaded to get a guide dog. And that's when everything changed, because I had never told anybody that I couldn't see. And as I walked down at midnight, down the steps of the library to return the key to the talking computer, there was a young lady at the front desk working at the library. And she said, "What is this key to anyway?" And I said, "It's to a talking computer on the 2nd floor." And she said, "Why do you need a talking computer?" And I said, I couldn't tell her. But then it came upon me, and for some reason I felt very comfortable, and I said, "I can't see well anymore." It just came out. And I was so excited about getting a guide dog and being able to potentially travel on my own that as soon as I could go to guide dog school, I left. And getting a guide dog is something very different, because I never told anybody that I was losing my vision. At that point, I was blind, legally blind. I could still see tiny pinhole. One piece of that puzzle was still left, and I would look around at people's faces. And at that point in time, when I got that guide dog, I returned to the university. I was independent. I could travel on my own. I didn't have to tell anybody. They just knew. This man has a dog. It has a harness. It says guide dog on it. Therefore, he must not be able to see. Mm-hmm. And it was my way of letting the world know without saying it. But the beautiful part of this story is the moment that I walked back into that library, I wanted to see that lady at the front desk, who's now my wife of 25 years. We've had 4 children. So as she held the key to my heart, I want to say.
Yeah.
And,
there's something poetic in that story of finding the computer, which led you to guide dogs, which led you to a degree of independence, and of course your wife all being part of that same moment, even, Tom, in your life, which took you from like the very lowest point, and then this was like the start of your road toward independence, and quite a poetic sort of place you ended up as the CEO of Guiding Eyes, which we'll get to in a bit, okay?
Yes.
Tell us about running, because running, you mentioned running earlier.
Yes.
And I know that running's been a huge part of your life and how you, a part of your expression and pursuit of independence. So tell us a little bit about running, what it means to you, and then I want us to demonstrate a little bit how we run together.
Yes, so running was something I had to give up, and I couldn't play ball sports, but I really enjoyed running. And, you know, when we're kids, we love to run. We go from one place to another as quickly as we go, and then slowly over the years, we tend to slow down a little bit, except for you, Rabbi. But we tend to slow down a little bit, and we tend to sort of give up that feeling of freedom. And when you lose your vision, a lot of people then say you should sit still. You should sit still because sitting still is safe. You shouldn't go out. You shouldn't do all these things. So running was on my list of what I call the impossible, something you shouldn't do if you can't see. You shouldn't run. You shouldn't drive either. I tried that. Didn't work out too well. And that's in the book. It's called Crash Test Dummies. It's chapter 7. Please read it. It's very interesting. And when you run, you get this feeling of freedom. But you can't get that feeling of freedom on your own when you run. And that's where Rabbi Michael helped me, because my aspiration was to run a marathon. I set my bar high because my bar was already set low. People's expectations of people without vision is very low. Tapping a cane, trying to find your way, inability to be independent. And I really wanted to say, what's one of the hardest things that only 1% of the population will ever do? A lot of us will strive to run for a 5K, so I tried that. Yep. Some people, and that's a great place to start, just to run a 5K, 5 kilometers, 3 miles. Most of us can jog that if we really try. And then the next goal was to run 10 miles. And the only way that I could run was by what we're about to show you, which is having a guide runner volunteer to guide me, to be my eyes. And you can imagine running down the middle of Flatbush Avenue or 42nd Street in New York through Brooklyn, all the way to Central Park. This is America's busiest city. There's potholes, there's pretzel stands, there's light posts, there's people that just decide to step right in front of you. That used to be at Rabbi Michael's congregation in his place previously. Just pop out all the time on the course without really regard to the fact that I can't see, because it's a race. And you have 42,000 people going in one direction, or 70,000, however many. And it's very challenging. You really have to trust your guide. So I think what we're going to do is do a little bit of a demonstration.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
And if you're ready to show, first we're going to show you how, I think, how Michael showed me where to go.
Sure.
Okay?
So we'll leave 10 right here.
Ken's got the day off.
10's got the day off.
Stay. And you need something. So it could be a shoelace. We call it a tether. So
it's really a short loop.
Yes.
That connects us to one another.
Yeah, so we're going to just loop this together. It's about this length.
Yep.
And it could be, we call it a tether.
Call it a tether like this.
Yep.
So that we're connected, and Tom can feel how I hold the tether and whether I'm pulling it forward a bit, slowing it down, going right or left. Yeah.
Stay.
And so we're connected the whole time we're running, so we have to run the same pace.
Yes.
Either, sometimes, Tom has to say, can we slow down or can we speed up? So I'm like, I just do what he wants me to do. And my role, in addition to holding the tether and guiding him via the tether, is also to guide him by with my voice.
Yes.
So I'm narrating the course in front of us. So as Tom mentioned, if there's a pothole, I'm going to say that there's a pothole. There's a place that we run together that has speed bumps every once in a while. I have to say that, otherwise that's a hazard for someone
Yes.
with a vision impairment. Yes. When we're turning right or we're turning left, I'll often count down to the corner. So I'll say, we're going to turn left in 10, 9, 8, etc. And when we get to 1, I'm saying, turn left, 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 until we've reached that 90 degrees. And then I'm saying, okay, now we can go straight. I'm narrating uphills and downhills because runners need to know how to vary our stride or balance, etc. So the whole time we're talking about life, we're talking about our families, we're talking about our work, we're talking about running, etc. And then I'm like, oh, by the way, there's a pothole here. Let's go left. Let's go right. Turn left. Etc. So in between our conversation, there's also all of the narration.
Yes. And the best way I can describe it is if you're driving a car and you have a passenger with you. You're making up for that space of the car being wide, right? And so Michael is the steering wheel. I am right by his side, and he's double wide. So he's making sure he's got enough space, just like you do driving in a car on a lane. And I think the interesting thing about it is it becomes it's hard at first.
Yeah.
And even when we went running just a couple of months ago, it took a little bit of time just to get in our groove again, just to get used to kind of getting back on that bicycle or getting back in that car. And I will say, though, when we were running, and you can read in the book, chapter 10, I talk about running with Michael in that marathon. That was a big unknown for me, because not only did I not know whether I was going to be able to finish the marathon, this is the New York Marathon, the iconic marathon, I didn't know if I was going to be able to successfully navigate with Michael. I also didn't know if I was going to be able to finish on our target time, which was, again, under 4 hours. And it was very windy. That day was very windy. So
Cold and windy day.
Cold and windy day. So as we're going over the Verrazano Bridge, which is one of the biggest bridges in New York, the wind was pushing us from side to side. And here's this tether. And, Michael is just, I can't even hear what he's saying. He's supposed to give me verbal cues, but the wind is whipping in our ears across the bridge. So all I'm doing is, you can imagine, feeling this. And that's the only thing I'm doing. And while I'm doing that, I'm running, trying to keep up with you, running as fast as my legs can carry me. So it really takes a lot of courage and faith in another person to do that for you. And I'd like to just give a warm round of applause for Michael, who made that happen for me. Should we have the 7th graders try this out?
Yeah, so does somebody want to come down and should we go down the steps?
Yeah, sure.
And one of our
We're going to
7th
switch
graders?
sides, since I'm used to your other side
Yep.
here.
Usually we're on this side,
Yeah, okay.
exactly.
There we go.
Okay, all right, step down,
Step down, copy.
step down, 2 more, 1, 2, okay, we're on the ground.
Good,
All right,
okay.
there. Who wants to try? Okay, anybody come on, Ethan, come on up, step up.
So Michael will guide you, I think, right?
Right, so you're gonna stand right where I am, take the tether in your right hand, and you want to have your hand
Go ahead.
kind of
Michael, I'm
close
gonna
to
give you the
Tom's.
tether,
Oh,
yeah.
you're gonna give it to me?
Yeah, because
Oh.
you don't want me guiding.
Oh, no. Ethan, I thought Ethan was going to guide you.
Oh, Ethan's going to guide me?
Ethan was gonna
okay.
guide
I thought he
you.
was going to close his eyes.
Okay.
So,
Oh,
all right,
no,
you
Ethan's
can-
gonna be your guide.
Very good. Wow.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so you're going to narrate also, Ethan. You're going to tell Tom where we're going.
Okay.
I don't know. You tell him.
Okay.
Just go straight. Let's go straight.
Go straight. Okay. 10, don't worry. Okay. Door. Okay. Got a door. Okay. All right. See you later, everybody. Bye.
Okay, see you later. Bye, Tom. All right, Ethan, you have to guide him back.
Let someone else.
Water's right here, Ethan.
Okay.
Away again.
You're fine, Tom. 10, don't worry.
10 got a little worried up there.
Ethan, can you help Tom come all the way up the steps to his seat?
Okay.
All right, you have to tell him where the steps are and where to step up.
Good job. That's perfect. Okay. Perfect. All right. Round of applause for Ethan.
Okay, there's a seat right there.
There's a marathon in your future.
Okay, 10 is just to your right. Yeah, we've switched
Oh,
we've switched seats.
Let me take that other
Okay.
seat. 10, touch. Touch. Here we go. Touch.
There we go.
Good boy.
Ethan, well done. Thank you. Thank you. So the last question I have for you before I want to open it up to everyone else is to tell us about your work at Guiding Eyes. That about 10 years ago when I came here to Temple Israel to become senior rabbi was right about the same time that you left Washington, D.C., where you were working for the federal government, the State Department, et cetera, for a long time, for a couple of decades, right?
Yes.
Up to that point. Tom served in several presidential administrations during his time in Washington. That you became CEO of Guiding Eyes for the Blind, which is the leading guide dog training school in the New York area. And so this is your opportunity to tell us a little bit about Guiding Eyes and your work there and how you bring independence to other folks who've lost their vision.
Yeah, and I know Mark Greenberg was here and a couple other people that raised puppies for us. So thank you, first of all, if you're involved in Guiding Eyes as a volunteer or supporter. As Michael mentioned, in that story, I had always hoped to travel, and so I spent a lot of my years traveling on behalf of the American organizations, businesses, and I was a diplomat in many different countries around the world, and I always had a guide dog with me. And I couldn't do it without the guide dog. I also have 4 children, Maddie Bell, Troy, Timothy, and Tilden, and was able to really succeed in my career with a guide dog. And I wanted to be able to give back to others. I didn't want others to have to go through what I went through. And so when I had an opportunity, about at the same time you started here, you're right, to come and be a member of the community, I became CEO of Guiding Eyes for the Blind. And I have a wonderful board that said we really want somebody who understands what it's like to have a guide dog to lead this organization. And we have right now about 1,000 active people who are blind and visually impaired, who are paired with a guide dog all the way throughout the United States. And we do support other organizations around the world. For example, just this week I gave 2 dogs to the Israeli Guide Dog School. It's something very important to us to be able to help other organizations with both breeding and support. We also have a residential facility where people, as they're losing their vision, it could be anyone from 16 years all the way up to, in their 80s, who might have macular degeneration or perhaps they've had a sudden loss of vision, and they come and they live with us on campus at Guiding Eyes in Yorktown Heights, New York. We give them a guide dog, like 10 here, for free, and we help them understand what it's like to have a guide dog. So 10 has about 100 commands that he knows. So for example, he knows steps, stairs, escalators, stop, left, right. He also knows how to find a doorway. When I came in today and met Michael at the front door, 10 got me all the way up here on stage and found the stairs, led the way. So I'm very independent with the guide dog, and Guiding Eyes for the Blind does that for anybody in need. And we do that with people who volunteer to socialize puppies. If anybody wants to take a puppy home for the weekend, you can do that. The great thing about taking a puppy home for the weekend is they're 8 weeks old and you give them back on Monday. We also have the ability to have people raise a puppy, and volunteer raiser families take the puppy. After that, bring them into their home, and you can raise them till they're about a year old. We have you go to puppy class, so you learn about what it's like to raise a puppy to behave like this. Most Labradors at 2 years old don't behave like this. Most dogs don't behave like this, but they really become incredibly well socialized and adjusted because of the volunteer family. And at about a year old, they come to my organization, and at any given time, we have about 150, 160 dogs in training. And we have people that, for a living, work to teach the dog. Basically, it's school. They start with basics at Stay and Heal, and by the time they're finished with their training, which is about 5-6 months, they're able to guide a person who can't see through Manhattan.
Wow.
And so it's a beautiful program. It helps a lot of people. And, I really felt like guide dogs changed my life, and so I've been very, very fortunate to be able to give that back to others who are going through the same thing I went through.
That's fabulous. Okay, so do we have any questions? And maybe one of you guys, not only can you ask a question, but then you can pass the mic along, and maybe we'll alternate between 7th graders and some grown-ups here who have questions. So Tom doesn't know everybody here, so can you introduce yourself when you ask a question and then ask the question?
My name is Abby. My question is, was there a specific reason why you didn't tell anybody that you were losing your vision? Like, did you have, I don't know, but was there a specific reason why you didn't tell anybody?
That's a really great question, Abby, and I'll tell you the answer. When I was growing up, if you had a disability, you would be removed from your classroom, from your friends, from your family, and you'd be sent away to a school for the blind. And I didn't want anybody to know because I was afraid of being away from my friends and family. Back then, they called people with disabilities, quote, exceptional pupils, end quote, and there was no requirement for those pupils to be served by the schools. And sometimes schools didn't know how to teach Braille, literacy, or orientation and mobility. And now, fortunately, we have teachers who can assist in providing additional support. So it was really because I didn't want to go through that. And the interesting thing is, people who have gone to schools for the blind, I have many friends who have, they have very good orientation mobility skills, they have very good Braille skills, but the problem is that a lot of times those schools for the blind, because you're around other blind people at the time, you're not integrated with other sighted people, and so therefore you have a very difficult time reintegrating into employment. So that's a great question, and I was scared of losing my friends.
Thanks, Abby. That was a great question.
Hi, I'm Lori. Did you ever figure out like what was causing you to go blind?
Yes, that's a great question too. And so in our lifetime, probably in the past 15 years, there was a really wonderful effort. It's probably the biggest collaborative human project in the history of us working as scientists together, and that was the mapping of the human genome. And anybody who knows that, that's taken a class on genetics, can identify that we all, every one of us, have things that we carry. And I have almost like if you think about a light switch, there is one switch that's off, and it happens to be a switch called PDE6B. And what happens is the photoreceptors in the back of the eye that help you see, mine were slowly, there's a protein that just slowly started to go away because of this genetic reason. And so there's about 720 reasons why a person can lose their vision, and that's one of them, but fortunately we're able to determine that it was caused by genetics.
Oh, and then one more thing. How did your parents react when they found out you were blind?
Yeah, that's a great question. We got some really great questions here.
Awesome questions.
My parents were immigrants, and one of the things that I think was very hard for them to do as they tried to, and I talk about this in my book, as they tried, they were both builders. My mother was an engineer, my father was an engineer, and my mother and father immigrated at a time, and this is for the adults in the room, my father was born in the Warsaw Ghetto in April of 1942. And if you think about that time period, all of my family was executed. So he was able to escape the Nazis and to be able to come to this country. And to be in this country and to have an opportunity to be educated and to restart his life, to meet my mother, and to really celebrate what America has to offer, part of that was not necessarily what I would call acknowledging that I had trouble with vision. They just thought I couldn't see well, just like you might think, a friend has a difficulty hearing, so you just talk louder. And so they accommodated just by helping me do little things, but none of us knew that eventually my vision would get so bad that I would go blind. So part of that is a story about a very specific time in history. I think today, anyone who has a disability can understand. I have friends with disabilities. I have friends who are in wheelchairs, friends with MS, CP. We understand now that empathy, love, compassion, supports can help a person become anything. I think back then, when I was growing up, we had a lot to learn.
Hi, my name is Dylan, and when did your parents or family or friends start to realize that you couldn't see as well?
Dylan, this is a good question because my friends would sometimes pass notes to me in high school to help me hide it because a couple of my best friends figured it out. And so I had a friend named Brian, a friend named Kevin, and when the teacher would write something on the board, they would pass a note to me, and they thought it was cheating, but actually I was just looking at the problem on the board. And I'll tell you a really funny story. One of my best friends, Andreas, he was a really good tennis player, and I was put on his team, and we were playing doubles. Any tennis players out there? And we won the championship for the school. And I just stood there waving at the air. But he was so good. He just, still have a tennis trophy in my bedroom. I don't know how I got it, but I never hit. I could serve, right? You could serve.
Yeah.
You serve. You have the ball in your hand. After that, forget it. It was done. So
He was a good friend.
my friends knew. Some of my best friends knew, Dylan, in high school. My best friends knew that something was very, very different about me.
Hi, my name's Phoebe. When did you tell your parents and family that you couldn't see?
Phoebe, the answer is never. I have a brother and a sister, and I came home with a guide dog, and they said, "That's nice." I'm a parent now, so I understand that much better. But I don't encourage anybody to take that. I think you should always share with your parents if something's on your mind or something's troubling you. But it just doesn't work that way. No, I to this day, my parents don't talk about it. It's something that we talk about life and family, but we just don't talk about it. It just is something that I've lived with and overcome, and I'm grateful for having two loving parents that kind of put me on this earth and set an example, because my parents' work ethic was second to none. And I think they taught me something that helped me. Determination and drive is so important for all of us. But it's a great question. The answer is never.
We have one more question from our 7th graders, but then I want to enable some of the grown-ups in the room to ask questions.
Hi, I'm Madeline, and I'm just wondering, what I just want to understand, what can you see anything, or is it all just black, or is there some light? Is there a pinhole?
That's a great question. Is it Madeline?
Yeah, Madeline.
Medeleine?
Yeah.
I have a daughter named Madeline.
Oh, nice.
And she's studying to be an ophthalmologist, by the way.
Cool.
So the answer is, I can't see any of you. I can't see Michael. I can't see 10, but I can see some of the lights. The brightest light here I can see, just some of the brightest lights, and nothing that the light illuminates. So what happens is your eyes have something called rods and cones, and I don't know if you've learned this yet, but your rods help you see at night, and your cones help you see color in the daytime. And anybody who has an iPhone, you have a beautiful pixel display there, a retinal pixel display, which is phenomenally bright. And essentially, at first, like a tree, if you think about a tree has branches and leaves, and your rods are like the leaves. They help you see at night, and even people who look at a telescope, you kind of look out of the side of your eye a little bit because you see a little bit better. And the cones help you see vivid in color and detail. It's almost like the branches. And so you can imagine over time, the leaves fell off a tree like you see in the fall, and eventually the branches fell off as well. So I can't see anymore. There's a lot of research that's being done into vision loss, and I participate and fund some of the research. But so far, 2 weeks ago, there was a breakthrough in Stargardt's disease. Anybody knows that one? And there's been some promising science. And then there was a young girl named Hannah, who was about 4 years old, who had a very similar vision issue. And fortunately, through the wonders of science, Hannah can now see. So there is hope in the future for people who may lose their vision, so that they may be able to see one day. But no, I can't see at all.
Thank you, everybody. Can we pass the microphone? Oh, Kate's got it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So same rule, you have to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Julie. First, I would just like to tell a little story. My dad was invited by a friend to go to a graduation for guide dogs. And I guess must have been in his 70s at the time, somewhere around our age. But anyway, he was so moved by the dogs. The families took the dogs up, and they were introduced to their new owners, to the person they would be partnered with. And he could not tell the story of that for the remainder of his life without choking up and getting tears in his eyes. It was one of the most moving experiences of his life. So, I mean, thank you for what you do for everyone. My question is about the school nurse or whoever. When they gave you the eye test, didn't they report to anyone that you had failed the eye test?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Starting with graduation, every other Friday, we have graduation, and it's open to the public, so I encourage you to follow in those footsteps and to come to one of the graduations. The next one will be on February 14th, Valentine's Day. They're usually at 4 o'clock on Fridays, every other Friday. And it's a wonderful time where the dog is paired with the student, and there's always tissues, not a dry eye in the house, because it's a very bittersweet moment. Did the school nurse report to anyone? I think they truly thought when the school nurse told me, and I remember, and I tell that story very vividly, to go to the eye doctor and get a new pair of glasses. So I went to the eye doctor. Her name is Dr. Luckhart, and I sat there, and she was able to give me a pair of glasses so that I could see the eye chart, which was very bright, like that overhead projector. But I couldn't even find the seat in her office, which was so dark. And I hid that. And so they just assumed that he got a new prescription, he's good to go. So I think that's how I continued to hide it. I will tell you that about 3 years ago, there was a story in the newspaper and on TV about me running with the guide dogs, because I have taught guide dogs to run with people, and I've run with guide dogs. And Dr. Luckhart, 88 years old, took her walker and visited my parents' boyhood home, and took the newspaper and taped it to the door, and said, "I wish I would have known."
Oh.
Wow.
I can understand how the doctor or the nurse, because you don't expect that a child is completely losing their sight. You know, you look for an explanation that's within your realm of experience, right? Of like, oh, they just need a better prescription or whatever. You're not expecting a scenario that's so far beyond what we generally think of as the realm of possible. Yes. So I have empathy for them. Yeah.
Hello, I'm David. You mentioned the talking computer, but is there anything more recent, technology-wise, that's really changed your life in any way?
So, David, I love technology. If anybody goes home and wants to Google the word guideline in my name, I worked on a program to use an iPhone with headphones to run without any assistance through Central Park. And this was amazing because it gave me feedback in my left and right ear as to which way to go. We painted a line through the park in the middle of the night, so nobody knew. And the phone followed the line. And I'll tell you something, because I care about Michael and I care about people who don't necessarily have the ability to find a guide runner in their home area or get a guide dog. You know, technology is really an equalizer and will continue to help people who are visually impaired. There's also an app called Seeing AI on my phone, and I can pick it up and it will tell me a menu, it'll read aloud, it'll tell me faces in a room, how many, it'll tell me embarrassingly whether the person is smiling, how old they are, whether they're bald. So it's come a long way. I'm really hopeful that we will continue to embrace technology. I also funded this year a quadruped robot. Do we have anybody in robotics at all? A quadruped robot, which is a robot dog, and it successfully guided me through a hallway to a water cooler using AI. So these things are in the future. None of them is so reliable as Michael in a marathon, but you know, one day we may see, for those of you who are kind of Star Trek fans, we may see that ability to use technology to navigate. I think it's on the horizon, and I think it's exciting, but I think one thing that I will say, though, is putting all the technology aside, human compassion and having compassion for others will always, always, always be better than technology.
So one thing that's fascinated me, if I can step in here, Tom, is that you started running both for training and then races with human guides, and then you transitioned to dogs, having your dogs guide you. Yes. So maybe I'll tell a little bit, but you can tell more about teaching the dogs to run with you for a certain distance. A dog can't run 26.2 miles. But your brilliant plan was to train several dogs, each to guide you for a few miles of a longer race, and switch out dogs every 5 miles or so, right? Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I was at the start line of the Boston Marathon, and after we ran New York, I kept going and qualified for Boston. And I had a few people say, I have to leave my guide dog at home, but my dog loves to run and I love to run. And after I run with a human guide, I have to go home and throw the ball for my dog. Why can't I run with my dog? And one such person was somebody that I had met at Bethesda Naval Walter Reed Hospital, who had lost their vision very suddenly in war. And we really wanted to see if it was possible, and people asked me if it was possible, and they said, well, you're now the CEO of a guide dog school. You're a runner, so see if it's possible. And at first I was a little skeptical. I attached a cane to the dog. I put copper pipe, like a hula hoop, around me just in case I bumped into something. It was, we tried different things. I then worked with students to develop this harness. I made it a student project, and this is a ski boot binding on the top of anybody's skis. They click in a ski, and a handle that I could hold on to, and this is adjustable and moves in and out, up and down. So we needed a connection between the dog and the person, and then we needed to see if it could work at a faster pace. And one way to test out the theory was I had 3 dogs. I had a dog named Waffle, yellow lab, very fast, a female dog. We had Wesley, a big black lab, very big black lab. They were brother, sister. And Gus was my dog, and I signed up for the New York Half Marathon. I figured if I could do halfway. We started training for that. And as you know, Michael, we have to run around cones, we have to make turns, and so nobody believed that the dog would know which way to go. And so part of it was teaching the dog to follow the runners ahead, and also to be able to identify the other dog as we come up to it on the race course so that we can do a relay race. And so we were able to finish the half marathon in 2019. We're the first dog-guided relay race, and I guess set a world record because no one else had ever done it.
Right, totally.
But my book starts out with that race. It starts out with being in that race, and the first few pages of chapter 1 talk about that race. And then you have to read the whole big, boring book to get to the end of the race. But it was a really special moment. I was surprised to see how many people, I was just doing it, but in the beginning, somebody was at the start line. They climbed up the fence into the corral, and they kind of crashed down. I tell this story in my book. And I said, who is that? They're going to stop me from running. They're going to say, you can't do this race, you can't do it. And it was a reporter, and they put a camera on the dog. And that year that we ran the race, it was one of the top 10 most searched stories in the world.
Yeah.
Which was incredible, which was really incredible, which compelled me to write the book, which took a long time, because everybody said, please tell your story. Please tell how you managed to get these dogs to the finish line. It was very emotional, too, because being able to run independently was something I hadn't done since that boyhood story about Anchor, that dog I told you about, led me to Coco.
Yeah.
That was the first time I had run. I knew it was possible, Michael.
Yeah.
But I needed people, frankly, like you, to show me that I could even run in a marathon. So we help each other.
Well, to me, like the arc of your story is one of seeking and achieving greater and greater independence. First through a guide dog, and then the sort of the feeling of freedom of running, but with a human guide. Eventually, not needing human guides, teaching your dogs to guide you, so you didn't need me to drive over to your house to go for a run. You could go for a run with Gus, who was the first dog that I knew of yours, and Waffle. So then going to doing the half marathon just with the 3 dogs, and then the AI on the iPhone that guided you on the stripe. Essentially, the iPhone was on like a fanny pack, the front of a fanny pack, and it was trained to pick up the line on the road. And you have earbuds in, and it tells you verbally or with some sort of signal that you're too far to the right, too far to the left, you need to, et cetera, et cetera. And what moved me most in that YouTube video, which is very searchable, you should all watch it, it's amazing, is the emotion displayed and expressed by individuals who were now able to achieve a level of independence, not needing a human, not needing a dog, and running on their own for the first time using this technology. It was inspiring.
Thank you. We had Marianne Sparrow, Rebecca Cross, and a few other people. The first time they ever put down the cane or the handle and were able to go for a walk in the park was using this technology. And so I think that feeling of independence is freedom, is what they say.
Yeah.
It was freeing to run with you. But there's probably a day in our lifetimes where people who are blind will be completely able to be independent and free. And I think that's what we all strive for, is to be independent. But one lesson that I learned through that independence is that you actually have to depend on others to be independent. I know it's an irony, but I don't know if that's a lesson you 7th graders who are still here, if they're still here, learned. But independence is a really interesting journey because we're all dependent on each other. I was dependent on Google engineers. I was dependent on people helping me along the way. And I think if there is a theme in my book that you will read, it's not spelled out, but I think the theme is really we all need a little help along the way.
I appreciate it.
And we also have to know when to ask for that. And I didn't know when to ask for that, and it took me a long time to get there. But now, because I have a whole team, Laura Peterman is here, my chief of staff, I have a whole team working for me every day. We're able to help a whole lot more people by being dependent on each other. So it's an interesting paradox.
I love that. We have time for maybe one more question, and then I'm going to wrap up with a brief Jewish teaching. Okay, Lori, please. I don't know where the microphone. Oh, Keith has it. Okay.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. My daughter is visually impaired, and we have, offline I'll tell you stories about the incredible impact your organization has had on our area and our elementary school, where we do Diversity Day, and we have a vision table, and just incredible. So thank you for what you do. I'm curious as to your opinion about self-driving cars. Are you excited about them? Not so much?
I have tried one, a self-driving car. I think what's interesting about self-driving cars is that all of society had an aspiration to have self-driving cars, and it really got a lot of traction 10 years ago. And we all thought, oh, we're all going to be sitting back watching a movie. In fact, some people did that and didn't end well. And we all had an aspiration to do it. And I actually did a keynote in Sydney, Australia, about the technology that's coming out. And I did that in 2017. And I said, in the next 3 years, I'm going to get to the next conference in a self-driving car. We know how that story is unfolding. It's very complicated. What we do when we drive is we use millions, if not billions, of decisions are being made in real time. And I think that it's been deemed as unsafe, though there are certainly cars out there that will self-park and help us, and I have one, I'm not ready to get behind the wheel anytime soon. Would it be nice? Yeah, I think it would be really nice for not just me, but for anybody that needs some assistance in driving. But my opinion right now is we have a long way to go.
So I love these questions, and I'm just going to end with a brief Jewish teaching. So Tom, you may be aware that there is a law in the Torah that says that you may not put a stumbling block before the blind. You're familiar with this. Now, our rabbis, our sages of old, ask, who would do such a terrible thing like that? You'd have to be a pretty awful person to put literally an obstacle in front of a blind person. So they say that can't really be what this law is about. So what's the law about? First, they say, it is that the blind person is both to be taken literally and metaphorically. So the rule is that anyone who doesn't have the ability to see or understand or notice an obstacle, for all sorts of various reasons, not just because of their vision, we should not put that obstacle in front of them. Second thing they say is, it's actually more than you shouldn't put a stumbling block before the blind, that our job as human beings is actually to remove any obstacle that is impairing someone's path forward. That's our job as human beings. There are people who have literal obstacles in their way. There are people who have all sorts of unseen emotional obstacles in their way, et cetera, et cetera. And our role as human beings is to remove those obstacles. Remove obstacles from people who want to get an education. Remove obstacles from people who want to get a better job but can't. Remove obstacles from people who want to move on from trauma, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Our job is to remove those obstacles. Your life has been a story of finding ways to gain independence, and now, as CEO of Guiding Eyes, to remove those obstacles from others so that they too can have an independent life, a better life. And so we applaud you and we salute you for that. And we thank you so much, Tom, for coming tonight.
You're welcome.
To Temple.
You're welcome.
As I mentioned, there are books outside, and so Ten is going to help Tom get out to the table outside where we can sign books, and you can have a little conversation. You can share more with Tom about your experience with Guiding Eyes or with guide dogs, or ask him any other questions that you'd have a chance to ask during our program today.